Big play, big play.
A1. Throw me on ESPN, I'm today's big play. Throw me on Fox Sports, I'm today's big play. You can catch me on the news as today's big play. Big play, big play, big play, big play.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to A1 Forever Sports. I am your host, Chris Tip Moore. You already know, be generational because there's always time to be, and no point in settling for less where you can always have more with the vision. And today, we're recapping the Hawks versus Spurs. Rapid recap here. The Hawks, they fell to the San Antonio Spurs in overtime, 133-126, behind a 42-point performance by Victor Wembanyama. The Hawks are now on a 2-game losing streak. If you go back to the NBA Cup semifinals against the eventual NBA Cup champion Milwaukee Bucks, to where the Hawks was taken down. They lost by 8 points. They also missed 12 free throws in that game too to kind of help that, and they didn't shoot very well. But back to the Spurs game. The thing about it is the Hawks had so many opportunities to win this game, despite Wemby's efforts, despite having Chris Paul, who was the point guard out there, and the returning Devin Vassell, who was big for the Spurs. It's just like he was just hitting shots and just making plays, all the way around, putting pressure on Atlanta's defense as he was returning. At one point in time, like I said, the Hawks had opportunities here. So at one point in time, the Hawks had an 81% chance to win the game and then a 73% chance to win the game when it was a minute left. Right when Jalen Johnson hit that three, the Hawks had a 73% chance to win the game. Now, of course, it was back and forth between the Spurs and the Hawks. They had, I believe, 11 lead changes, and most of those was like in the fourth quarter going back and forth, back and forth. But for one thing, of course, like I said, back and forth trips between the Hawks and the Spurs. But one thing that absolutely cannot happen is when Chris Paul got the 4-point play. Not only did he hit the three, he got fouled. That absolutely cannot happen because that was a crushing play. That play was a crushing blow to the sternum. Crushing. But, so when it comes down to it, at the end of regulation, the Hawks still had opportunities. Hawks all-star Trae Young uncharacteristically missed 2 free throws late. And also, he missed the shot to get the potential game winner against Victor Wembanyama. Honestly, I think the Hawks possibly wanted the ball in Trae Young's hands, but the matchup was bad because you had 7-7, 7-4, 7-3 Victor Wembanyama, and you had, Trae Young who had to try to shoot over him. Now he did front rim it. If Trae was a little bit taller, or maybe was able to get a little bit more on the shot, maybe he would have been able to knock it down on Wednesday. Knock it down on Wemby. And it would have been an epic victory for the Atlanta Hawks. Very epic victory for the Atlanta Hawks. But that was not the case. Of course, I think it was a busted play because Larry Nance was at the top, but you still had Sochan. He was actually probing. Like he was waiting for Trae to possibly throw that ball to Larry Nance, who was on fire, by the way, for the Atlanta Hawks, but we'll get into stats and everything like that in a little bit. But Trae had to do what he had to do. It was just a bad matchup. I would have loved to see somebody else get open for a shot there, but it just was not on that. It just wasn't able to happen on this particular night. In overtime, though, in the overtime session, the Spurs would outscore the Hawks 13-6, including 2 big threes from Victor Wemby and a dagger from Chris Paul, who came back in after what it seemed like he had suffered a hand injury or something in overtime. He came back in and he knocked down shots. It was painful to watch, to say the least. It was painful to watch because the Hawks, they had the game. I really believe they had the game. Free throws, they hurt, but also playmaking, shot making. And, you also seen that the Hawks, the same thing that goes on in the NBA, the same thing that went on last night with the Hawks. Victor Wembanyama has the ability to make you second guess driving in that paint. Although the Atlanta Hawks was able to still get into the paint, DeAndre Hunter had a monster dunk against Wemby, and they had a little jawing afterwards. Sean Elliott said, so you don't poke the bear. At the end of the day, DeAndre Hunter, keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting in people's face. He had an altercation with LeBron a few weeks back. That was Bron's fault, by the way. Yes, I said it. Because he was just doing too much. You were doing too much, flat out. Okay, but the dunk on Wemby, so now it wasn't, just straight up. He didn't come straight up, but Wemby, you went and chased after it. That's a poster. So at the end of the day, Wemby did wake up a little bit in overtime and stuff, but ultimately the Hawks weren't able to execute on the other end too. So credit to the Spurs now. Credit to the Spurs. I'm not going to take anything away from them. They just showed that they wanted it a little bit more than the Hawks in overtime. So I give credit to them for that. Next, I'm moving on to an interesting stat that I found very interesting. I did. Hawks, they shot the ball 47% from the field, 42% from three. But the problem was the Spurs shot 48% from the field and 45% from three. Cannot happen. You're not going to be able to beat a team like that at all. And even though you were close, you could have given yourself better opportunities. Maybe if some of these guys are not knocking down threes, maybe if you're trying to give more effort. And I'm not saying that effort wasn't there, but we already seen the effort wasn't there on every single drive, on every single 3-pointer. Some of those shots by Wemby, you're not going to be able to do anything about. He hit a freaking a shot clock beater, to where Trey and Larry Nance jumped out and he kind of waited and still had the ability to go up. The man's tall. He's tall as heck. Then he had the ability to go up, shoot the ball. He was able to make that three. And when he made it, I was just like, come on. And then the next possession or two down, he gets past the ball, walks right into a three. The man's tall. So threes that would be long and kind of like crazy for, let's say, Trae Young, it would be a little bit more easier for Wemby being taller. But again, credit to the Spurs. They did what they did. But another interesting stat is the Hawks hit 16 3-pointers this game. That's the 5th time this season Atlanta has hit 16 or more threes. Their record now is 3-2 when that occurs. The Spurs knocked down 19 threes. This is the 12th game where Atlanta has given up 16 or more threes this season. They are 6-6 when that happens now. So, you know what I'm saying? So, it's clear and obvious. Prevent teams from hitting these 3-pointers. Run these guys off the 3-point line. We got to continue to do that. We got to make that a consistent thing to where teams are not knocking down so many threes on this Atlanta Hawks team. Now, moving to the game. In this game, the Hawks did show some fight. They did get back into the game after a slow start versus the Spurs in the first quarter. Spurs was knocking down shots. The Hawks looked like they was a deer in the headlight at first. They had 8 turnovers in the first quarter, and that would hurt any team. You know what I'm saying? But especially this young Hawks team. And again, you would be plagued by turnovers in the third quarter as you had 7. So the Hawks' best quarter was the second quarter from a points and a turnover margin, because only giving up 2 turnovers held your opponent to 24 points, scored 37 of your own. And I would have loved if they were just able to close out that second quarter just a little bit better. It wasn't terrible. So I know the ball bounced, to Vassell at the end of the quarter, for that big 3. But the Hawks were up by 11 at one point, and then ended up going into the half only with a 6-point lead. So that right there, I believe, hurt the Hawks as well. I know it may be tick for tat because, it's about a game of runs. In that second quarter, the Hawks had a 13-0 run, a 7-0 run, and at one point, I believe, had a 17-4 run going on. So again, Second quarter was their best quarter. In the fourth quarter now, I know it's easy to overlook this, but along with DeAndre Hunter and Larry Nance, with the outcome is over, it's easy to overlook that Trae Young was a driving force in the fourth quarter to keep the Hawks in it. Yes, he missed the free throws. That's on him. He knows that. I'm pretty sure. Trae Young also missed the potential game winner over Victor. I understand that. Tough shot. Possibly a busted play, like I said. But he still made big shots, big plays. Every time the Spurs would try to inch away from the Hawks, some way Trae Young was involved to the Hawks hitting big shots to stay right in it. Now, I understand it's easy to get lost in the sauce, but what happened is what happened on both sides, before overtime, all that good stuff. In the fourth quarter, Quinn also decided to stay with Larry Nance Jr. for majority of the quarter outside of Clint Capella, who did have a decent game. However, that may have been due to the fact that Larry Nance actually earned that time. He earned those minutes. Now, Capella had a great second half, being able to finish around the rim, being on the receiving end of some great passes, but he didn't give you anything in the third. He gave you 3 rebounds. Larry Nance gave you the same amount of rebounds. He gave you 3 rebounds, but he also put up 2 shots. So I'm thinking, for one thing, Quinn is like, okay, Larry's been knocking down shots. He's been playing decent on Wemby. And also, at least, so he'll be able to draw Wemby away from the basket as well. I'm going to roll with Larry Nance Jr. down the stretch. That's where I think like Quinn kind of went with that. Was it right? I'm saying? It's subjective to however you feel. But I believe that's what his thought process might have been there. Now let's get into some player stats right quick, man. Player stats before we get up out of here. Hawks, of course. First, I'm going to start with the 22-minute Zachary Ricochet, who was 4 for 13, 30% from the field, 1 for 4, 25% from 3. Zach, he also had 4 rebounds, 2 assists, ended up with 9 points. Now, I believe Zach was trying to be aggressive. He was able to, by him, hustling and moving around, he was able to be on the receiving end of getting some buckets. But he's still trying to find his shot. He's still trying to get that consistency going. And it's going to be growing pains for the young man. Again, I believe in Zach. Not going to lose any faith in him. He's being brought along. He's being brought along. And eventually, I think he's going to be able to find his shot on a more consistent basis. Because he's putting in the work. It's just got to translate to the court. Once it does that, because my thing is he's putting in the work. So once it translates to the court, the Hawks are going to be on the beneficial end of a player who is young, who plays well on the defensive end. I'm saying? I feel like he does pretty well on the defensive end to be 19. So stay with Zachary Ricochet. Don't give up on him, even if you don't have any expectations for him right now. Just don't give up on him just yet. Hold on, hold what you got. Since Zach, I think will be okay. Moving next would be Jalen Johnson, who played 38 minutes. He was 8 for 14, 57% from the field. He hit his only 3-pointer of the game that was big, and that was the 3 that I was saying that would add a minute left and the Hawks had 73% chance to win the game. That was his only 3. He did make 5 or 6 of his free throws. JJ missed 1. Trae Young missed 2. That was the only free throws the Hawks missed. Total difference from that game against the Bucks when they missed 12. So at least they did clean that up a bit. You just hate that Trae Young at the end of the quarter, which is not the sole reason why the Hawks lost, by the way. Come on now. But it's a big reason on why we particularly went to overtime. Maybe we would have been able to put more pressure on the Spurs if Trae knocks down both shots. So it happened, okay? It happened. JJ also had 9 rebounds, 8 of them being defensive. He also had 3 assists. He gave you 2 steals. He gave you 3 blocks, 4 turnovers. You kind of live and die with that. But he gave you 22 points. So JJ was good in this game. I think he was good in this game. I would have liked to see him be more of a factor in the fourth quarter. Because JJ, I believe he was 1 for 4. And that was that three that he did hit. I remember he tried to go to the hole. Wemby did block his shot at one point in time. So he was trying to score a little bit, but I would have liked to see maybe JJ a little bit more down the stretch. If nothing else, to at least probably try to get downhill and put pressure on that defense. But it was another guy who was on the heater, and I'm gonna get to him in a minute. But would possibly maybe a reason that was taken away from some of JJ being able to touch the ball and everything and being able to be within the offense. Clint Capella, good game, man. 21 minutes, 5 for 7 for the field, which is for 71%. He gave you 9 rebounds, and 6 of those was on the defensive end. He gave you an assist. He gave you a block, and he also finished the game with 10 points. He had a good game. You know what I'm saying? For 21 minutes, he had a good game. So I would move on to Dyson Daniels. Dyson Daniels, 27 minutes, two for 6 from the field, 33%, 0 for 2 from 3. The man gave you 5 rebounds. He gave you 2 assists, only 1 steal, 4 points. This right here was Dyson Daniels' worst game to me. You know what I'm saying? Just all the way around. Defense, he was cool. He did pick up 4 fouls. So I mean, and also he was for the plus minus folks, he was a negative 34. This was Dyson Daniels' worst game of the season, right here. You know what I'm saying? December 19th, 2024. You know what I'm saying? Dyson Daniels finally has a statistical bad game, you know? And the Hawks did need more from him. It's going to be games like that. My thing is Trae Young hasn't been shooting the best all season. It just be like spotty in situational times where he just knocks down a big shot. And speaking of Trae Young, he played 36 minutes. He was 7 for 16, which was 43% from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, which is 50%. And of course, 6 for 8, 75%. Oh gosh, man. Trae gave you 16 assists, though, okay? 16 assists. He didn't have any rebounds. He didn't have any rebounds this game. 3 steals. Yeah, 3 steals. And he did have 5 turnovers. I mean, you definitely don't want to see that from your all-star point guard, but I mean it happens, right? You know, it's going to be some games guys are going to turn the ball over. It happens. You just want to see it at a minimum. 23 points. So 23 and 16 for Trae Young. You know, so in this game, again, instrumental in the fourth quarter, instrumental just throughout the game, being able to make plays, get guys in the position. The Hawks, I believe, did a lot to win the game. They just didn't execute, you know, as far as on both ends of the floor. Defensively, allowing guys to hit threes. They're a young team as well, talking about the Spurs. And they were able to hit threes. Wemby, you can do what you can do with him, but it's the other guys that you can't allow to, you know, and be able to go off on you as well. Moving next is the guy who I said earlier, who was on a heater and was probably the reason why Jalen Johnson didn't get a lot of touches. And that is DeAndre Hunter, 6th Man of the Year candidate. 9 for 15, 60% from the field. 4 for 8, 50% from the 3-point line. 5 for 5 from the line. Gave you 6 rebounds. Gave you an assist. Gave you a steal. Come on now. 27 points. This man is still coming off the bench. 27 points. 6th Man of the Year candidate right here. And honestly, he should be number 1 in that aspect. Now I want to get to another guy that I felt like had a bad statistical game. Vit Krejci, 19 minutes. Our backup point guard right now because Kobe Buffkin is lost for the season. The season, for those who didn't know. 0 for 4 from the field. and all his shots were 3-point shots. So he was 0 for 4 from 3. He gave you 3 rebounds, 3 assists. He did get you 3 steals. He gave you a block, and he gave you no points. So he did do some things in other areas, so that's definitely helped the Hawks. Appreciative of that. He gave you no points, though. He gave you nothing. And it's just like, I need Veet to be just a little bit more of an offensive threat in order to help these Hawks. Because you think about it, I mean, the backup point guard, yeah, supposed to set up the offense, get other people involved, but it's times where you're going to get your opportunities. You got to knock down your shots. Point blank, period. I do want to play a little devil's advocate with that, because Veet is not, so like Veet, he's used to the role, but he's in and out of it. He's in and out of the role. So if there's anything that you possibly can say, maybe due to it, maybe give it to that. But outside of that, you're still an NBA player. I think you need to go ahead and shoot the ball, man. Shoot with confidence. Shoot it like you're supposed to be shooting it. Like, not like don't be timid with the offense. I know Veet is not really just an offensive guy who hunts his shot. He's going to have to turn into it just a little bit, just to give the Hawks a little extra. We're going to need that little extra scoring, and the non-Trae Young minutes are going to be very important. So, Veet, it's all right. Shake it off. Let's get after it the next game. Larry Nance Jr. And I had to do the old school Godfather train right there, because the Larry Nance train was definitely going down the tracks. 8 for 13, 61% from the field. 5 for 6 from 3. 5 for 6 from 3. 5 for 6 from 3. 83%. The man also gave you 13 rebounds. That's more rebounds than Clint Capella, who gave you 9. He also gave you 2 assists. He also gave you 1 steal. He gave you a block. He gave you 21 points off the bench, and he hasn't been playing, but he's been staying ready. And that's what I love, man. Larry Nance Jr., all the minutes that he earned last night, the 31 minutes, he earned every minute, because he came out firing. And it was points in time to where the Spurs were trying to run off, and Larry Nance was like, nope, nope, nope. You know what I'm saying? So big shout out to Larry Nance Jr. for his ability to help the Atlanta Hawks stay in this game against the San Antonio Spurs. The job that he tried to do against Wemby, still, at a height disadvantage, but still, fighting against them. So, I definitely give a big shout out, and really who's my spotlight player. I know Dre had 27 points, but honestly, I'm getting used to Dre coming off the bench. I'm getting used to him coming off the bench with this production. So Larry Nance Jr. would be my player spotlight, the player that, just shined for the Atlanta Hawks, off the bench again. Salute to you, Larry Nance Jr. Bogdan Bogdanovic, 30 minutes, 3 for 9, 33% from the field. He was 2 for 7 from 3. He got it going early. He knocked down a couple of shots, but then he just could not get one to go in after that, talking about the 3-pointers. Again, I think he had, 1 3, and then I think the other 3 came later on. But in between, he missed a lot of the different threes. He had a fourth quarter 3. That's what it was. So the fourth quarter, he had a 3, and he also knocked down 2 free throws as well, and which gave him 5 points in the fourth quarter. So gotta have more from Bogey. I mean, you do. I mean, he still gave you 10 points. He did give you 4 rebounds, gave you 4 assists, and I do like that. He gave you a steal. So, again, the Dyson Daniels effect on everybody, because Ricochet had 2 steals. JJ had 2 steals. Dyson only had 1, but Trae had 3. Then you had 3 from Veet. You also had a steal from DeAndre, steal from Larry Nance, steal from Bogdan Bogdanovic. So the guys are playing better on defense. They are giving that effort on defense for sure. And but 10 points from Bogey, who was still a +8 for those who care about the plus and minus. Larry Nance was a +2. Veet was a +2. DeAndre Hunter was a +8. Trey Young was a -7. Clint, -9. JJ, -1. Ricochet, -4 for those who care about the plus and minus. But yeah, Bogey, if Bogey is able to knock down a couple more shots, it does put pressure on the defense of the Spurs. And I think, the Hawks would have been able to maybe take this game just a little bit better. But things happen. You got to shake it off and move on to the next game. For the Spurs, guys who, went off for them, Jeremy Sochan. And I actually like Sochan. I actually don't have a problem with him. I think he plays the game the right way. And he was 8 for 14, 57%, 50% from three, making free throws. He had 20 points. Of course, Victor, with his 42 points, he was 7 for 15 from three. So he was definitely jacking threes, okay? 13 for 24 from the entire field, 54% from the field, 46% from three. Again, the last guy, like I spoke about him before, the returning Devin Vassell, who was 9 for 16. He was 5 for 7 for three, 71%, 5 for 7, guys. 23 points, and it was big for him. Okay, so those three players right there, they actually hurt the Hawks, I think, tremendously, just in different aspects. Of course, some of the obvious would be Wemby. At the end of the day, Hawks got to bounce back, and I believe that they will bounce back. They have Memphis coming in. They're going back home, 7:30 game against Memphis, and we're going to see exactly, what the Hawks can do. Again, they're on a 2-game losing streak. Got Memphis coming in on the 21st, which is Saturday, 7:30 game. Home game, though. You're back at home after being in Vegas, after being in San Antonio. You're back home for some home cooking, and hopefully it can translate into a win. The Grizzlies are playing well. They are. So the Hawks are going to have to come out here and execute the best way that they possibly can. They can't play around with Memphis. They have Ja Morant over there, a high flyer who is also just, a guy who's like, just box office material when you see him. So Atlanta Hawks, it's time to get it together. It's time to bounce back, get back into that win column, because this is still an early season. We still do have a lot to prove. Use your experience from the Enemies Cup, from the NBA Cup, and just, continue to try to build on it, knock down your free throws, continue to learn how to win together. You guys are, right there. Just continue to try to build, and continue to go up. All right. Well, guys, that's all I got for you, man. Peace and blessings to you. Make sure you find your peace today, because positivity always creates elevation. Let's go, Hawks, as always. Be generational, because it's always time to be. And until next time, for A1 Forever Sports, I am Chris Tip Moore, and I will holler.